Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for taking the time to be with us here today and welcome to our fourth in-house forum program. My name is Hegriv Khaitan and I am a partner in Khaitan and Company's M&A and Corporate Practice Group. I'd like to extend a very warm welcome to this webinar to each one of you, whether you are in our audience in India or abroad. This is the second year of our in-house counsel program. In-house counsel forum is designed to be an educational program and discussion forum tailored for in-house counsel teams in India. The program is structured to provide bespoke professional training and education, not only in substantive law, but also management and other topics of interest to in-house counsel. Last year, the forum was by invitation only and was private in that sense. This year, we decided to open the forum to others, and it is now open and available to any in-house counsel team members to join, and we promote it publicly on that basis. However, we do aggressively manage webinar registrations so that only legitimate in-house teams can be present in live sessions to preserve the purpose of the forum. We still issue invitations by email to General Counsel, Chief Legal Officers, Senior In-House Counsel, in clients and close associates of the firm, and those invitations are extended to respective in-house teams. We do hope that through the process, we provide continuous legal training and executive education to in-house teams on matters of interest to them and their companies. On this slide is the agenda for today's webinar. In short, the format will be a discussion with our experts, including a Q&A session with audience questions. We hope that the session will be interactive, and we invite you to ask questions during the webinar as issues arise. We have already received several audience questions. If you have a question, please submit using the facility in the webinar portal. If we cannot cover all questions during the webinar, we will respond offline by email after the webinar. Also, please note that the summary notes of the webinar will be sent to you all after the webinar as a matter of course. The main purpose of the in-house legal team is to support the business it serves to achieve the corporate vision and goals of that business. However, the path to such success is often filled with challenges. In this session, we hope to explore and discuss some of the important contemporary issues being faced by in-house counsel in India today and to share with you those problems and hopefully potential solutions. Although, of course, each situation is unique and needs to be considered on merits. Our aim in this process is that you will benefit from our panel's extensive experience as in-house counsel in diverse sectors, and it will hopefully inform you and assist you in thinking and analysis in dealing with whatever issues you face. On your screen is a summary of the top 10 legal key findings identified in the 2024 Chief Legal Officers Survey conducted by the Association of Corporate Counsel. This is an annual global survey conducted by the Association of Corporate Counsel to identify issues being faced by corporate counsel and trends of nearly hundreds of in-house counsel in more than 30 countries and more than 20 sectors, including small and large companies. Whilst the issues faced by in-house counsel vary from sector to sector and from country to country, I'm sure that you can see that at least a few trends or issues that might be relevant to you. If you have not read the survey report, it is worth reading, and we will send you a link to that after the webinar. Today, our focus is on the big issues being faced by in-house counsel, so let us make a start. Every person who has registered for this webinar today has already received an email providing credentials of the experts on our panel today, so I will not spend time repeating or summarizing their credentials. Suffice is to say that they have a great deal of experience and have excellent credentials to speak on this topic. Quick introduction: Mr. Deepak Acharya, General Counsel of the Aditya Birla Group; Mr. Rajagopal Venkatakrishnan, Senior Vice President, Legal, Reliance Industries; Naveen Raju, General Counsel and Executive Vice President, Group Legal Affairs, Mahindra and Mahindra; and Amit SR, Vice President and Deputy General Counsel, Infosys. I don't think we could have ever had a better panel in the history of corporate India. Uh, so let us now begin in our panel and start the discussion. Let me start with you, Deepak, and Amit, both as a joint question. Uh, what are the most significant legal risks currently facing your industry? How is your company addressing those risks, and what are the implications for this for your legal department?
So, first of all, thank you very much, Hygri, for having me on this panel. I think what really makes this panel excellent is your presence amongst us as well. Um, Very, very interesting question you've asked us, and I'll try and be as precise as possible. But as the question relates to the risks, see, for Aditya Birla Group, we are one of the largest conglomerates in India and Fortune 500 company. Our business is fairly global, with almost more than 50% of the revenues coming from outside of India. So it can be as global as any other company can be. And being a global conglomerate, like many other companies, it is not uncommon for company of our size to have regulatory and compliance risks in different geographies and different parts of the world. So I would say that regulatory compliance risks is an important part of the what our 400 plus lawyers team handle globally. Along with regulatory risk, and I would be slightly specific here, is that being global business for us, uh, trade sanctions and export controls also are very interesting and important part of the compliance related risks that we look at, and our lawyers do get involved in trade sanctions and export control related risks. And these are areas which are not very well understood by the business teams. And we have to work very hard with the business teams to make them understand what are the key implications of uh, trade sanctions as well as the export control risks that comes with it. Um, you know, Also, we are major players in some of the key categories in India. Um, some of the key markets we are leading players in that market. So with being leading players in the market comes the risks which are associated with it, which is for everybody in this group who are lawyers. I don't need to tell them that competition law is a significant level of risks that comes along with being the major player in any category or any relevant market, so to speak. So that's one risk that we also have, like many other players. But broadly, I would summarize this by saying that we see the world out there today, a very popular term which was coined a few years ago called VUCA world, which is basically a very volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous world. And to that VUCA world, I would say there is a possible answer that in-house lawyers, along with partnering it with the external lawyers, of course, we can provide is to, give a vision in an environment which is little bit volatile, make little bit more understanding where you see a lot of uncertainties, bring a lot more clarity when there is a complexity, and bring agility and speed when there is an ambiguous issue that we are handling. So I think with those four solutions, possible solutions, General Counsel and his team can certainly help business bring some more clarity for sure.
I think Deepak, that's a terrific perspective, given the breadth and diversity of your business, and I think the way you've defined risk and the issues very relevant given your scope of the business. What about Amit? Seeing from your business perspective, what do you see as the most significant legal risks and the implications?
Thanks, Hagrev. Thanks, Deepak. So, Hagrev, at this point of time, if you ask me the most significant risk which the IT industry would see is, I would say, two. One is we as an organization or an industry is uh, way driven by what our customer requirements are. And for anything which impacts the customer, it has an impact on us as well. So whatever risk the customer sees as a big risk for them, obviously it will flow down to us as well as a service provider to them. Okay, so managing these two risks is currently the top criteria for any IT service provider. Okay, like if you look at the risk also from a dollar terms, it's huge. Like for example, like we all went through the entire GDPR exercise where it's all about the 4% of the annual revenue, global annual revenue was the exposure. Now we are into the EU AI Act, wherein the penalties can go all up to 7% of that. So it's gone beyond that. So said that when these things come up, a couple of things which also comes into the picture is uh, the customer wants to make sure that they're dealing with an IT service provider who's reliable and who is ensuring that they are not exposed. And to protect that, they will try everything to make sure that you have the right contracts which protects them. Now, it becomes equally important for us also as a service provider, as an IT service provider, that we also, from a contract standpoint, protect ourselves well. So I would say put it in two buckets. One is the risk which is coming from the customer side, and I would also add vendors as well, your partners, your service providers, because you are in between the two. Okay, so we just want to make sure that we don't miss out some of these key players as well into the entire risk exposure. So 2 points to address that. I would say one is get the right set of contracts which makes you understand what is the possible risk and how you mitigate that from a contract standpoint. Second thing, in the same aspect, have appropriate checks and balances in place, including a robust mechanism which can trigger immediately a requirement or whether there is a situation. So that's from a contract standpoint. Second thing, I'll top it up to what Deepak just mentioned, is all about the compliance, right? Once you understand there is a risk, how do you make sure that there is a right compliance program put in place with the right people so that we can mitigate risk? And most importantly, like any compliance program, uh, it will not have the strength unless and until you regularly check it. Okay, so you'll have to put the right checks and balances to make sure that the compliance program which you have implemented is running effectively.
No, very, very useful, and what a different perspective in one way to what Deepak has said. Where you're dealing with a particular industry, so that's another way of learning risk management. And from Deepak's perspective, where he's probably dealing with more than 2 dozen or even more businesses, another way of managing risk and dealing with issues. It brings a great, different, diverse perspective. So thank you for that. Let's move on to another topic around business relationship. If I can come to you, Venkat, what are the main contributions you think your legal team makes to your corporate strategy?
Uh, Good afternoon, Haigrave, and the other panelists. It's nice to be here in this panel. Uh, so, most of you know that we are a very diverse group and a very big conglomerate, and therefore we have a lot of luxury in terms of managing resources and managing the workload, etc. So I'm currently deputed as GC for Geo, and I have an oversight for retail. But I also, cut across, some of the other assignments within the group. So from contributions perspective, Reliance DNA is, being proactive. We have engineered. I mean, to be very honest with you, I don't think I brought in something on my own. I, sort of evolved myself along with, the Reliance DNA, and made sure that we got most of the things right, etc., etc. For example, when I say proactive, for example, as a group, we are always, in the midst of, either a fundraise or preparing for an IPO or, preparing for, some M&A deal or preparing for any, transaction. It's like 24 by 7, something or other, keeps happening in this group. So, it is very important that we should be diligence ready. So therefore, it's a huge challenge. After all, if you look at Geo alone, there are about 110 lawyers, and we have chief of contracts, like AVP materials, for about 8 or 10 different streams of contracts, and every contracts portfolio will be worth tens and thousands of crores and stuff like that. And therefore, we should ensure that it is all diligence ready, and therefore it passes a scrutiny of any third party investor or whoever wants to deal with us. Generally, both when we do some transaction with them or they do with us in vice versa situations. So, for example, I'm proud to say that in the last I think 40 plus years, we would have invested in excess of 150 plus $1 billion, in various businesses across all sectors and stuff like that. In telecom and retail only, we would have invested in excess of 80-90 billion dollars in the last 10 years. We have zero commercial dispute. We have zero commercial dispute.
Amazing.
Except the
Amazing.
legacy arbitrations in BP, etc., etc., we don't have any commercial dispute. Of course, we have some contractual, vendor disputes here and there, etc., etc. It's something, which, we always, sort of promote fair settlements, and as opposed to, the public perception that, we may be a little, hard on negotiations, etc., etc. In reality, I think we promote fair settlements across, etc., etc. So from that perspective, we have a lot of set processes and excellent decision making. Senior management team, to tide over all of these issues and stuff like that. So our contribution, in this whole exercise is to have both formal as well as informal, set processes, which will make sure that we are excellently, ready for any situation. Is something that now I personally have seen it happening, learned, from doing it, hands-on, etc., etc. There are a couple of issues, I can, sort of, narrate. For example, in one of our investment drives in 2020, and we were doing some, and we are, Facebook, for example, was doing diligence on us. And towards the end of the diligence, and as the investment was about to happen, there was one odd simple litigation was derailing the entire process. And there were multiple mails being sent from disgruntled gentlemen, etc., to SEC, Department of Judicial Affairs, and including the investor promoters, etc., etc. So actually speaking, it was not a crisis, but it was a major irritant. But the issue was, we were so prepared that, we had a nice docket prepared, on that entire stuff, using international councils as well as domestic councils. I mean, for a district court litigation, we prepared a docket, with assistance from Covington and, including, some people here, etc., etc. So it passed the test quite seamlessly, I would say. We were so happy that we were prepared well for it, etc., etc. And there was another escalation from one of our software clients in US, on data analytics, etc. And I think the scope of the transaction was not particularly reckoned by both the parties when we entered into the contract. In my personal experience, I find that when we enter into a contract, we do it for a particular purpose, but when it comes to a disagreement, etc., invariably, and most of the occasions, we find a solution outside the contract only. It's not inside the contract. So from that perspective, it was a great learning when, it almost went into a big litigation. And, we found a way out where, we decided to part ways on a friendly basis, with, an outlook for a future transaction some 10 years later, etc., etc. And it was a very nice experience to participate in exchange of communication, and make sure that you don't confront, just for the sake of confrontation, and things like that. So from that perspective, we it was a great experience. And Reliance, has a unique structure when it comes to domestic operations also. We have, what is, we call them a state coordination, office. I'm sure that Naveen would have interacted, with some of the folks when he was, with us in the past, etc. So every state, we have, actually speaking, just to make sure that we collaborate well, if we achieve that goal, I'm sure, we will be able to, for example, every state has a senior gentleman who may be an ex-bureaucrat or ex, service, etc., etc. And, we will have also a matured guy, who, from within the system, homegrown, with some 20 plus year experience as a mentor. And we have a compliance and regulatory, team, as part of the whole thing. And, we from national headquarters, from both legal as well as, finance, etc. We form a task force, kind of a team. And, we pretty much manage, in a collaborative way, across all business operations. I can keep on saying, I think I'm taking too much time, but this is the essence in which we operate. And legal is involved in strategizing, collaborating, and execution as well.
No, very, very enlightening, Venkat, actually, because I think one can really learn different approaches, here. And two things which really struck me is, given your business needs to be diligence ready. And I think that was really a huge learning. And the other thing about the state coordination office, I remember some clients having come to us to say that, look, we want a 24 by 7 state by state service, where if there is an action in any state against a certain category of people or against our business, you have your lawyers completely ready. And you in advance, you should be able to dial 24 by 7 any lawyer in any state if we need to. And we've started providing that service, which, for example, in criminal matters or is really something exceeding. But exactly what you say, Venkat. We'll come to you, Naveen. Naveen, you are really the legal sort of gatekeeper for this huge mammoth organization. So one question for you is really, how do you really manage the balance between business requirements and your role as the legal gatekeeper?
Thanks, I agree. That question you asked is the biggest challenge that any in-house department faces, and I'm sure my fellow panelists will vouch for that. uh, it is a balance that we need to strike all the time. And many times the success of a legal department is dependent a lot on how well we are able to manage this twin aspects of the support that we provide. And just to describe that a bit, there is this one aspect of needing to be a partner to the business, to helping business achieve their goals, and making sure that there is no reason why the business is not able to do something which they would like to do. And on the other hand is the conflicting, if I may say, that there is a bit of a conflict in protecting the larger interests of the organization, the reputation, ensuring that we are compliant in every little way, and making sure that we are following the letter of the law, protecting the interests of larger stakeholders, more than just the business, the long term interests of the company and the various stakeholders. And there could be many times that either legal department is seen to be too uh, aligned with business, in the sense that they are almost subservient to business, and always a yes man about anything that the business would like to do. Or you here see the other extreme, which is where legal departments are seen as the naysayers, the always the people throwing a spanner in the works, preventing business from going ahead, being very risk averse, and opposing business decision making in a way that it is not helpful. So striking that balance is key, and I agree. We've implemented a few which I believe have worked, a few processes along the way. I think the first thing that we did was to integrate fully with our business. Our goals and our objectives are aligned with business, to ensure that we have involvement with business on everything that they do from the earliest stage. So we are not surprising them when they come at some later stage of business dealing having progressed, and then we tell them that no, this you can't do it this way, this is and they have to rework things. Our engagement and involvement from day one ensures that we are able to present risks and no goes, and uh, allow them to develop a plan and a business deal in a way that it is always compliant and they are not surprised. I have found that businesses generally are reluctant to involve legal teams from early stage, sometimes because they see that they feel that there is no involvement there, or there's no legal input that is required, and legal people or internal legal resources also are reluctant to attend, saying, oh, it's a commercial discussion, there's little that we can contribute. But the fact that by virtue of being involved from early stages, even though there may be less to contribute, it just helps in having a ringside view as it develops. And I've seen it to be hugely helpful in terms of being able to integrate and be able to provide that support, and to help in preventing this conflict between the roles from becoming too prominent or disrupting business activities. Also, legal teams, I think this is a big difference between being an external lawyer and being in-house, is the need for internal legal resources to share in the risk. It is typical of legal departments to say that, okay, here are the risks, now you take a commercial call. And businesses find that very, it's like passing the, throwing the monkey off your back, and you know, being secured in not having to be involved in risk taking. And we need we emphasize that our business lawyers are joining in understanding the risk and joining in with the business in taking decisions which involve risk, so that they are so that they're being held accountable and responsible for risks which we are willing to live with, which we are able to mitigate, which we are able to see as low risk, and at the same time, objecting to areas where there is high risk or which is absolutely no go. So these are ways in which we have tried to reduce the conflict, and I believe we have achieved some amount of success in doing what we do. I agree. So that's my piece on that.
No, that's a terrific perspective, Naveen, and I can only share that. In my experience, there was a time when organizations or business people in organizations would want to do everything by keeping legal away. And they just said that don't go to legal because they will put a block. Today, I think in organizations and they are involving legal to say, look, let's involve legal from day one because they will be the enabler in helping us do it. And I think I've seen that shift in business already, where legal gets involved very early, exactly your point, Naveen. And I think all you gentlemen are really playing that role exceedingly well in your organizations where we are not seen, all of us together, as roadblocks but as enablers. And another very very important thing you mentioned was about reputation, and I think that again tells, going by what you've achieved for the organization, that look, while you would allow everything, but how important reputation is. But that is really terrific. Great perspective. I'll come back to
So,
you, Deepak, now. Sorry, please go ahead, Venkat.
sorry, if I may add a couple of things, to what Naveen said. In fact, when I joined, and when I met our senior management team, for the first time, what was told to me was, as in-house counsels, we should know what the business is all about. Especially in a large corporation, the first challenge is the lawyer should know what the business, that the company is doing. If we know the entire gamut of it, 50% of the problem is solved. Then the second mindset that we have internally created, again, it's a mindset again. The thing is, for in-house counsel, every single department in the company is an internal client. And if you go with that client satisfaction objective, again 50% of the problem is solved.
Very well said. Very well said. I think exceedingly well said. So we dealt with two big topics: risk. Then we dealt with business relationship. Let's move to you, Deepak, with another third aspect, and that's about regulation. How do you see evolving regulatory landscape impacting your business, and what are the biggest challenges your legal team is facing as a result?
So thank you again, Haigree, for this question. But please allow me to add a point before I answer this question
Of
on the
course.
regulations. Respond to what Naveen and Venkat have said, and they have said it very well. But I think the way I look at also enabler lawyers as an enabler is also the way you think of how corporate lawyers particularly can become from lawyers to leaders. And there is a journey that every lawyer has to make from becoming a leader from a lawyer. And they become leaders actually only when they start to act proactively, looking at their client's requirement, looking at their client's needs, and addressing those needs ahead of their expressing it to us. So that's when actually lawyer becomes a leader, when they become more proactive and start working on the client's needs. On the regulatory side, I think it's a very good segue to your first question that you shared with me, and I shared that VUCA world that we live in, right? It's a very, very volatile world that we live in, and particularly in the areas of new regulations. And, we see multiple regulations coming in. We all are privy to that, and we know that what is happening in this field. But from an ABG point of view, there's a very interesting change that we see internally also happening for the group, which is, you know, primarily, ABG was a manufacturing group which was involved in manufacturing of lot of items. And what we've seen in last few years, a move towards manufacturing, which is B2B kind of a business, to B2C kind of a business, where we start to sell to now consumers, whether it is ABFRL, whether it is our new ventures that we are coming up with, whether it is Aditya Birla Capital business where we deal directly with the consumers, and few of the paint business, for example, where we are going to sell directly to the consumers. This is a very interesting change because what impacts you as a B2B player is very different as to what impacts you as a B2C player. And regulatory framework, as you talked about, is a very important key thing to keep in mind as you get into B2C kind of a business. So I'll give you an example which we are facing generally. One of the major change that we will all witness in a few days from now, perhaps a month from now, is the new privacy regime that we will see in India. We've all talked about GDPR, which is more of a global or a European phenomena, but mind it, GDPR gave you 2 years to prepare yourself for the implementation of GDPR. I don't think in India we will get that kind of a time to prepare ourselves. In India, regulations will be announced tomorrow, and you will be asked to comply with the regulations day after tomorrow. So if you don't start working towards that proactively, you will get into a huge risk if you start to work on those regulations only once privacy regulations have been announced. So privacy is, I think, one area which will impact a lot of companies that are dealing in data, and that too a personal data. ESG is one other area, and of course, primarily being manufacturing group, which is into manufacturing. Environmental matters have become very prominent, and within that environmental matters, greenwashing, as we all know, has become very prominent. You pick up any annual report, everybody claims that they are 100%, green company and all of that. So greenwashing is a critical thing to keep in mind. The other one, which is very likely to hit major players in the Indian market, is the CBAM, which European Union has already announced. For us, cement, aluminium is already part of those five categories that the European Union has already announced. And so that is something which is going to impact. Carbon credit is something that is going to impact all of the manufacturing companies. So be what everybody has to be really mindful of ESG laws that are going to be impacting. We are also in Aditya Birla Capital, for example, in NBFC and insurance, and very recently IRDA announced consolidation of 37 regulations into 5 regulations. So they've changed all that was there in the past into 5 to 7 regulations. RBI announced very recently the fraud risk management kind of a master circular, which is going to impact most of the financial services companies. Listed entities are all going to be governed by LODR, and the changes that are coming up in the LODR and the market rumors part of it, which has been going on for some time. Um, so these are things that are going to impact most companies. On top of that, for companies that are dominant players in the market, competition law changes are going to impact them as well. The way in which the fines are calculated, whether it is on the now global revenue, or whether the new digital law that is going bill, which is already in place, these are things which are going to impact each one of us. In the IPR side, you see the new patent regulations have been made effective, which were drafted and shared in 2024. So all in all, very, very volatile and very, very interesting changes that are coming up in the landscape. and if those changes, if you one looks at it from the changes that are happening within the company, it makes things even more interesting for a general counsel or for in-house legal team. It's a exciting time for all of us. I must say that with you.
No, I think you've summarized it very well, and for all of us as lawyers and for legal teams especially, which will manage to keep pace with the regulatory change, is just tremendous. And I can really see that. Look, being able to do that and to anticipate what the needs of business will be from a regulatory perspective is really the need of the hour. And I think
So,
you've summarized it exceedingly well.
so one key aspect that needs to be added here, generally, Hagrev, is see, we have, the union list and, the state list and the concurrent list. So the union list, predominantly that's governed by central government. They come up with some set of regulations, which purportedly has a pan-India impact. I mean, of examples are, the Telecom Act, which has now been, promulgated, etc. And, IBC, for example, Insolvency and Bankruptcy Board. But there seems to be a lot of non-alignment or misalignment, or in some cases, abject refusal to abide, by a lot of states, and that becomes a huge challenge. For example, in telecom, issue, there's something called, right of way and property tax. They're all, sort of determined pursuant to some Supreme Court judgments and and the High Court judgments, etc., etc. All of that has been negated, by this Telecom Act now. But I don't think most of the states, are likely to align themselves and and adhere to it, etc., etc. That will be a huge and humongous challenge, from implementation perspective, and considering the cost that we sort of incur operationally, it becomes a huge challenge. The other issue is IBC. We ourselves have acquired, quite a few organizations, companies, etc. What is pre-CIRP dues and who is liable is some issue which is being interpreted by every single authority in every single state in a different manner. So much so, it becomes a huge challenge, all the way, you take it up to the Supreme Court on a case-to-case basis, and sort of have it, sort of implemented.
No, very, very good points. And, I think it is something we have to go through, in terms of this center and state challenge. But or just on IBC, I think comparatively, we've done a very good job the way we've implemented. But I guess some new issues now arising. Hopefully, what the finance minister has announced yesterday will clean up many of these issues with the fresh set of amendments post some of these conflicting, I should say, decisions and cases. Uh, Moving to you, Naveen, I think from regulation, let's move to one sort of a more micro issue, but a very important issue, and that's relating to data privacy. Deepak touched upon it a little bit, and also cybersecurity. It'll be very useful if you could outline for our audience, the legal challenges associated with data privacy and cybersecurity, which you're facing, and how your team is responding to this.
Thanks. I agree. When Deepak did touch upon it, and I'll just take it on from what Deepak mentioned about GDPR and the time that was given in the EU for coming up to speed with the requirements of the law. But that was our earliest introduction to the complications that are presented by data privacy. And I think it was a good learning experience for us because we did have a fair amount of exposure with our Europe businesses, and that kind of prepared us for what was to come. And we knew that yeah, with Puttaswamy around that time, we knew that the law was coming. We also did have the opportunity to engage quite a bit with both the first draft and then the next. So to contribute as industry in terms of what we would, what our concerns were around data privacy. But I think from a legal department standpoint, the challenge that data privacy brings is the fact that we are spread across, for global corporations, the fact that there is these multiple legal standards that we need to track and compliance requirements across various jurisdictions, especially India being a jurisdiction where a lot of data is brought back here, even from other jurisdictions. So needing for Indian companies also to comply with multiple requirements is an issue. So for us, really the challenge is to be continuously monitoring compliance and developments that are happening across these jurisdictions, running training programs and awareness campaigns for all our businesses who are located across the globe. We are also running, along with our businesses, data privacy impact assessments and ensuring that our vendors and third party contractors are all in the same league in terms of ensuring that they are taking care of data privacy requirements. Also building in privacy by design and default across all our approaches. So this is as far as compliance with legal requirements and data privacy is concerned. But the other aspect, the thing that gives us sleepless nights, is the cyber threats that exist. Fortunately, actually, only unfortunately, we've been victims of cyber attacks multiple times, and we have kind of been able to create a competency, if I may say, around dealing with cyber attacks, data breaches, and dealing with ransomware attacks. And I say that it is a fairly complex area that is that has emerged in the recent times. For legal departments, it is a huge challenge, and what I find is that we now have, after a few experiences, ability to deal with these incidents. The speed at which you deal with it is so important. Also, you're dealing, there are multiple agencies that you need to interact with. I didn't realize that something like this would involve having to deal with regulators across multiple jurisdictions, law enforcement agencies, forensic firms, insurance companies, because you need to keep insurance companies and track multiple law firms, of different, and it's kind of very intensive. So I think this is something that is going to continue to remain a big challenge for legal departments. I agree.
Agreed. If I may add quickly a
Yes,
very
please.
short point.
Yes.
So, Naveen has rightly pointed out the challenges that exist in this area. But one additional point I would like to mention here, which is, in my mind, very, very critical, given the fact that, you know, everybody will be hacked at one point or the other. The question is not whether businesses will be hacked or not. The question is at what time they will be hacked, right? So, um, there will be cyber incidents that is waiting to happen, and it will happen. The point where businesses need to understand is that whether they have a resilience when the cyber attack happens, are they ready to start their operations immediately thereafter the cyber attack has happened, is the critical point which most businesses miss. They don't really invest enough on cyber resilience. And when I speak to our businesses, I try and kind of emphasize with everyone that cyber resilience is the most important aspect. Of course, the notification will happen. Of course, the investigation will happen, and all of the postmortem will happen as to where things went wrong, etc. But all that will happen in the background. But we as a business should have the ability to stand up and start running again as soon as possible. And that resilience has to have in every business. And that's something which, as general counsel, as legal counsels, we must work with our businesses to make sure that they have the right resilience in place.
No, very well put. I think Naveen and Deepak very well put and very practical, because one has to prepare and really get business to be ready and resilient, as you have said. Uh, I think that's the perfect opportunity to move from cyber to technology and innovation. And Amit, if I may come to you with the questions, everybody's talking about intelligence and artificial intelligence, not just in businesses but also in the legal sphere. And if you can sort of talk a little bit about what you think are the legal implications of the latest technological advancements like artificial intelligence for sort of this industry, and what's the role of legal departments in these matters?
Thanks, Agreed, and rightly so. I'll probably like emphasize on the AI bit, okay, and coming
Your voice is cracking, I think.
from the IT industry, AI is direct, okay, and as any other organizations, like we have we are deeply invested in the disruptions which is running across the customer industry and like our own IT industry as well. Okay, so just to give you an example, like for example, the uh, the AI itself has accelerated the entire software development process. Okay, now this is a change. Okay, this was like in a traditional view. If you look at it, how does the coding happen? How many are like how do you do a testing and so on? So it was a long run process, right? But now that has changed. Okay, that's definitely a big shift. Okay, now going with the shift which has happened, and we all have seen the capabilities the AI can give, right? And it's unbelievable. Okay, if you look at some of those things, but coming from the legal department standpoint, we definitely have a key role here to play. Like for example, one of the key things would be uh, with the new regulations coming in, and okay, like we just want to make sure that every risk is being evaluated at each level and with every AI use case. Okay, it cannot be because every use case could be different. It may not. You may have a set of solution for a particular requirement, but the AI use case which may use there may not be the same which you may use it somewhere else. So this could also vary. Okay, so it's important that you assess each and every AI use case before it's been implemented for the customer. Okay, now as I said, like I did mention in the beginning also, it's all about the EU AI Act also. If you look at it now, if because the act is in place, it becomes equally important for you to work with the stakeholders to make them understand what is this act all about and what is that we are going to use as part of a solution which we are going to offer it to the customer, and how this particular solution along with AI is going to be compliant with the law. Okay, so that is where the legal team will have a very important role to play. Okay, now similarly, like the other aspect which is equally important is we all had the traditional contracting terms and conditions. Now, when it comes to AI, it has to be different. Okay, it cannot be the same traditional terms and conditions which will come and play because the entire solution and the risk is different here. Okay, so there's a lot of insights which AI derives from the data. So it will touch upon various aspects. So it is important that uh, the terms which you agree with the customer should have built-in mechanism to make sure that the risk is assessed appropriately and right terms are incorporated. Okay, so that's something which is going to be different, and each project or each scope of work should be treated differently because the AI use case could be different. That is how I see it. Now, similarly, like the other aspect is all about the third party we use. So, for example, in one case, we are talking about when we use our AI for the customer solution. There could be other scenario also wherein you may use a third party to develop solution for you and probably use that AI for your customers' projects as well. Now, uh, as I said, like in the past, there has been a lot of tradition about how these terms and conditions come with the regular software service providers, but that has to change. Okay, this is a different uh, uh, arena altogether. So people should understand that, and that's where it's equally important for the lawyers to get into the details to ensure that how things flow from one person or one entity to us and then to finally to our customer. So the entire flow has to be managed very effectively. So I would say like a lot of things coming in, and it's still evolving, and you'll see a lot of developments in the coming days as well. But uh, put it in points, I would say like the ensuring to be key because of the acts and the consequences also around it. Second thing I would say like ensuring or drafting appropriate contracts is going to be equally important. The risk management of the entire solution once it has been put across is also going to be key. You need to develop policies. Okay, you need to develop appropriate policies uh, within the organization to make sure that whenever there has been a use of AI, it's been in accordance with the policy, so that people know that this come up with a which includes AI. And lastly, very, very important is the training and awareness. So the legal team has to take that lead to make sure that they coach every team which is involved in this entire AI journey and made aware of how what are the consequences if it has not been done appropriately. Because if you look at it, the intentional wrongdoing is very, very rare. Okay, but you end up doing things inadvertently, and that can have a major impact, because from a customer standpoint, no one cares about it. From a regulator standpoint, no one cares about it, right? It's all about the implications. So you have to be very careful and ensure that the team on the ground who's actually building it is completely aware of the nuances around it.
Thank you very much, Amit. Really enlightening to see how many different perspectives, vis-a-vis AI. It's not just about us in legal practice using AI, but as legal departments, you have to think of so many different things when it comes to AI. So that's been really enlightening. I think we're coming to the end of our webinar, but before, and we have lots of audience questions, but before we get to the audience questions in the last 10 minutes, I have one more question, very relevant, which I think each one of you all will really enjoy and relish, and this is cost management. So I think let me ask Deepak and Venkat both on their views, that what strategies are you employing to manage costs associated with your legal departments to be more effective and efficient. I think you're on
You're on
mute,
mute.
Deepak.
Yeah, so thank you, Haigreve, for raising this point because, I've always shared my view on this as to personally, I don't feel legal department is a cost center and therefore should look at it as a cost management. The way I see this is what value do we bring in, right? So I equate the cost with the value and say that what is the value that we are able to bring in as legal department, or as we engage with the law firm, are we able to get the right value from the law firms? At the end of the day, when you look at in absolute terms, it will be seen as cost. But when you see cost versus return that you get on that cost, you will start looking at the value. So certainly one should look at reducing costs which doesn't give you a value, but a cost that gives you a fantastic value. Why should I want to reduce that cost? Because it is giving me 10 times the value that I've spent that money on. So I don't really see legal costs in absolute terms. I see legal costs always in the correlation to what they bring on the table for me, what they bring on the table for the business. And many a times I've seen this, that working with the right law firm, working with the right partner, working with the right resource brings you multiple times of the cost that you actually incur. One piece of advice that can save you crores of rupees is a value that law firms bring. A timely intervention by a lawyer, in-house lawyer, which you have hired as a specialist lawyer. You may have spent money on hiring a specialist lawyer, but if they bring in one intervention in the system, that brings in a tremendous value for everyone. So I personally don't see cost in vacuum. Cost has to be seen in terms of the return that we get on that, which I call it as a value. And if we get a right value, I think I don't mind spending that cost if there is a value coming out of it. So that's how I look at the cost management. I think.
Venkat, what's your
Yes.
perspective?
So yeah. So I mean, I totally agree with Deepak. On what he said. Uh, in reality, legal costs, internally is number of heads, right? So as a Reliance Group, we have 400 lawyers. So how many of them, justify, their work role? If you really go deep into it, it's anybody's guess. Some people will have a different view, and some people will have another view, etc., etc. And at the end of the day, each business division, also wants to have the comfort level of, I mean, an ideal situation. For example, one of my dream, for Reliance is, to have an in-house law firm. I mean, almost all the practice area that a tier one law firm handles in India applies to us. Right from aviation onwards to M&A onwards, to fundraising onwards, etc. Every damn thing is there. So why not we have a in-house law firm? But the biggest challenge is work allocation. Work allocation, can never be met, etc., etc. So what I have informally done, from geo and retail, perspective is, I have a special projects legal department, which is not attached to any business division, which is just attached to me, and it has more of entry level legal resources than managers, and it is led by one senior manager, etc. So basically they are the bouncing board for all business divisions, and where they have more kind of a workload, but they don't have the bandwidth to handle through their own legal resources, they come to them. And they also act as a knowledge transfer kind of a help desk, and they also do a lot of multifarious things when it comes to research and things like that. So that potentially when it comes to a critical diligence issue, or a critical transaction advisory, or a critical response to a consultation process in a regulation, it adds a lot of value. And I do lose a lot of people. I can't sustain most of the entry level guys beyond a period of 3 years. I mean, anybody who spends 3 years, 4 years in Reliance is worth a gold mine for a lot of other companies. So therefore, they leave. So I consciously replace them in a particular way, etc., etc. And I believe that has indirectly helped in the cost management, etc., etc. From external resources perspective, again, when it comes to transactions advisory, and M&As, and those stuff, etc., etc., we don't really cringe, on cost there. We generally go around, with some of the best talents available, both in tier one law firms across the world, to that extent, etc. But what I do is, there are a lot of other contracts. For example, we do a lot of IT procurement contracts. IT procurement contracts is a huge business for us, etc., etc. It's not small in transaction value, but it's a regular stuff. Almost 24/7, we'll be doing something, or other, etc. There, I've worked around, as opposed to a secondment from a law firm, we have managed to have a 2-member help desk or a 3-member help desk, both internationally and domestic law firms, etc., etc., who technically, is available for us whenever we want, but not necessarily, they're only doing our work. That has really helped us, to get some of the best practices at the most optimum, cost level, etc. From disputes management perspective, we don't have corporate commercial disputes, but we have quite a few regulatory, issues, escalations, and stuff like that. So there, we have gone for adjustable retainers, with some established senior counsels, and there are a lot of, new senior counsel designates, which has happened in the last, 5 years to 10 years, etc., etc. And luckily for us, all those people have grown as senior counsels, after being associated with us, etc., etc. So they do have a lot of emotional, attachment with us and things like that. So we have converted that as a community, to help us on a, on a on a on a on a daily basis. And from my senior management perspective, we also have certain list of subject matter specialists. If it is a Mr. Criminal Law, Mr. Data privacy law, Mr. Securities law, that kind of stuff. We have some young, bright, lawyers, who will eventually become big, and we keep replenishing them with a new lot, etc., etc. So that's in a nutshell of the various things that we do here.
Oh, I think that was really a masterclass because, when people think about cost, it's only about chopping, chopping, chopping. But both you gentlemen brought such a refreshing perspective on, cost management. It's not about the ultimate bill, but it's about, how you manage and get the best. That's a tremendous perspective. I know we are running out of time. We have lots of audience questions. So I think we'll have time for only one audience question to take, and it's really addressed to Naveen and Deepak. And the question is, can you discuss the approaches taken by you to attract, retain, and develop legal talent within your legal departments? And this is a question from the audience. I think they'll find it very useful for both Deepak and Naveen for you to address.
Deepak, I'll let you go first.
Sure, sure, sure. So managing talent in a corporate organization is a very very important element of the jobs for all the general counsels. I would say that I at my level also spend considerable amount of time on managing the organization. And when we talk about organization, you would have noticed one trend which I noticed number of years ago. I think it's visible to everybody is that you know how many times you would see people from law firm joining the corporates, and you would see multiple people joining from a law firm to a corporate. That is normally the way corporates recruit good lawyers. But reverse is not true generally. Not many lawyers from corporate would actually get into a law firm, and that doesn't happen very often. It happens. I know few examples, but those are very very few examples. So the point I'm trying to make here is that you as a general counsel will have to have very clear strategy to manage the talent that you have. And if you don't have that clear strategy to manage the talent that you have within the organization, your organization will always keep looking for new lawyers, and it'll be few people, good people that you train, they will leave, and then again you hire new people and you train them. So it's going to be a perpetual exercise, and therefore addressing the needs of young lawyers and giving them a career in the organization is very, very critical. If you are not able to define a clear career path for your lawyers, then they are not going to stick around. We all hire, whether it is Geo, whether it is Infosys, whether it is Mahindras, and all of us hire bright lawyers, right? We all go for bright candidate. We all go for important. I mean, we all go for lawyers who are very, very bright. But once you hire them, we have to make sure that we have right strategies to retain them as well. So I think keeping or having a career path or providing a clarity on career path to our lawyers is very, very important. Where we don't have that clarity, you will see a lot of people leaving your organization. There'll be a lot of attrition. Where there is a clarity, you will see that people will stick around and people will work with you to, ensure that company grows and the talent also grows. So it's a win-win for both company as well as the talent.
Thank you. Thank you.
Uh,
Naveen,
uh,
anything to add?
No, I think this is good. I will just say that earlier we used to have this whole problem with attracting good talent. People coming to in-house were few and far between. But now, yeah, I think that has changed significantly. That people can expect to get productive careers out of being part of in-house legal departments. It's a choice that people in private practice make, and we see that the best of the best are available. So attracting talent is not so much an issue at all, but it is retention, and to which Deepak did raise very valid points about how you can show career paths and how you can be able to mentor young legal talent. Being a large organization like ABG or Mahindra's, we have the ability to rotate people and give them opportunities across the group, and that's what I'm leveraging on, at least I agree, in terms of giving people, showing a career path. But in smaller legal departments, I can imagine that it could be a challenge as to how you keep people motivated and committed over extended periods of time.
No, thank you very much. I think very, very useful and insightful. I think before we end, I'll just summarize a few takeaways for our audience. First, what I really took away was businesses are getting global, and Indian businesses getting global. Each one of you here, as Indian GCs, are really global GCs, and today you're tackling global issues. And I think that was a tremendous learning of how corporate India and the role of the Indian GC has changed. It's not the Indian GC, but global GC. The second thing learning was vis-a-vis external sources, it's about partnering. It's not about in-house versus external, but it's really about partnering. I think from you, Venkat, huge learning in terms of being diligence ready. I think this is a phrase now I will never forget forget to use, as being diligence ready. And also this learning about state coordination officer. And I think for all of us, a great learning how in the whole depth and scope of the country, how we can be ready. Uh, Other learnings, I guess, protecting the reputation of an organization and shouldering that burden as a GC, and having the balance between business and in-house legal counsel, and being involved in from day one, I think extremely important. I think one of you made the comment of lawyers becoming leaders, and again that shows and sort of delves in very well to the career choice now being made by lawyers to go in house, because they can ultimately become leaders and not just remain as backroom boys or girls, in organizations. I think, Amit, so much learning from you in terms of what's happening in the tech world, and a huge learning that in AI, it's not just about the use of AI, but as in-house counsel, contract terms have to be reviewed. So much of training and awareness have to be done. Companies need to put in policies for AI, and I think that's again a tremendous takeaway for all of us. And of course, lastly, on cost, which was, as I said, extremely refreshing for all of us, that look, neither our in house legal departments a cost, and I hope external lawyers are not a cost. And all of the new innovations you made, Venkat, in terms of cost management, in retainerships, outsourcing, selecting counsel. Again, very, very useful, I think, for the audience. So, with that, before closing, I'd like each one of you in the audience to respond to the poll slide on your screen to provide your feedback on today's webinar. We take this very seriously. Mitesh, if you can put the poll slide. Uh, and then thanks to everyone who participated in the poll. Uh, Finally, I'd like to thank Deepak, Naveen, Venkat, Amit for all your thoughts, which were very insightful. Each of you made a wonderful contribution to today's event. Thanks also goes to our audience for their attention. I hope they found the webinar a worthwhile investment for their time. As I mentioned, after the webinar, we'll send you a summary note of today's webinar. You'll also receive a request for feedback. We take the feedback very seriously. And of course, suggestions, criticism, and also compliments are welcome. If you are interested in any in-house training or other matters, please do not hesitate to contact us. And thank you very much for your attendance, and we look forward to being with you in our in-house counsel forum. Thank you very much. And thank you all of you.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
everyone.
Thank you all. Thank you all.
Bye-bye.